What's up, citizens of YouTube? Welcome back to the Limited Edition Dudes. I'm Jack.
And I'm Matthew. Wait, no. I'm Jack.
And I'm Matthew. Avengers Infinity War is almost upon us, with less than a week to go. And all of us know that one person that hasn't seen any Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So today, we will be summarizing everything that has happened this far in the MCU, so anybody who hasn't seen any of those movies can go see Avengers Infinity War. We want to make it clear, this is not the preferable way to see the MCU, but watching all these movies can take over 36 hours. Yes, we actually calculated that.
We'd also like to mention that this video does contain a ton of spoilers as it covers a wide range of MCU movies, so if you'd prefer to watch Infinity War with absolutely no background or context, then stop this video right now. If you'd like to learn more about the MCU, then let's kick this thing off with Phase 1. Let's get started with the movie that started it all back in 2008, Iron Man. The story of billionaire Tony Stark, who ends up getting kidnapped by terrorists who want his skills to build a massive weapon. In order to escape, he needs to create a suit that will get him out alive and be able to kick some terrorist butt. After Tony escapes, he gives his suit a major upgrade and decides to use it for good, rather than focusing on his life of money and weapons. He now only wants to do what is right for him and the world. In the end, he fights the bad guy, wins of course, and in the post-credit scene is approached by Nick Fury about forming the Avengers.
Following that movie, Marvel came out with arguably the worst movie in the entire MCU, The Incredible Hulk. This is the story of the scientist Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk because of gamma radiation that infected his cells, which turns him huge and green every time he turns angry. Pursued by the military, Bruce goes on the run and tries to cure himself and to escape from being weaponized from the military. He eventually does escape from the military, he also fights a bad guy, he also wins, and then he's approached by Iron Man in a post-credit scene.
In the second installment of Iron Man 2, Stark returns as the metal-suited hero, this time deciding to reveal his identity as Iron Man. Following this groundbreaking news, the government decides that Tony should hand over his technology to the government. Being the sarcastic smart aleck that he is, Tony refuses. Little does he know, at the same time, one of his rivals, with the help of a Russian scientist, is using Stark's technology against him. The result is Stark defeating them and eventually proving to the government that this technology can't be handled by just anyone.
Next, Marvel came out with Thor. Thor is the god of thunder. His father, Odin, is approaching death, so that means Thor is soon to inherit the throne as the king of his home, Asgard, only to have the palace attacked by frost giants the day he was supposed to be coronated, and then he was banished to Earth and rendered powerless by his father. While his mischievous brother Loki remains back on Asgard, plotting Thor's demise, Thor eventually has to leave Earth to confront Loki. He wins, happy ending.
During the first installment of the Captain America trilogy, Steve Rogers starts out as a scrawny kid from Brooklyn who is deemed unfit to serve in the military. His passion to serve is noticed by Peggy Carter, a top-notch agent. He undergoes a secret operation that turns him into a super soldier. Now as Captain America, he must battle the Red Skull, a monster of a man whose same operation turned him into a red-faced skull. The Red Skull is the head of the Nazi science division, Hydra. Following a climactic battle high above the sea, Steve defeats the Red Skull, but crashes the plane into the sea, trapping him under the ice for decades, until we see him later in the Avengers.
Finishing off Phase 1, Marvel hit us with Marvel's The Avengers, when Thor's evil brother Loki returns to Earth with the Tesseract, an object of infinite power. He poses an unprecedented threat on Earth, forcing every single superhero that we've been introduced to team up, including two superheroes that we haven't mentioned yet. The first is Hawkeye, basically just some dude who's good at shooting arrows. The second is the Black Widow, a girl that doesn't have any superpowers, but she's got some crazy skills. So it forces every single one of these superheroes to team up and form the Avengers. They basically just fight Loki and have this super epic showdown. So the only thing you really need to know about this movie is the Tesseract, which becomes a very important artifact in the MCU.
Kicking off Phase 2 of the MCU, we have Iron Man 3. During this installment of Iron Man, Tony Stark faces off against his new enemy, the Mandarin. This madman attacks and destroys Tony's mansion, with Tony still inside of it. As the movie goes on, Stark struggles to get to the bottom of the event and the other bombings that have been happening, soon realizing that there is a greater enemy behind it all. Aldrich Killian, an old enemy of Stark, has created an experimental procedure called Extremis that allows its user to heal from almost anything, but can cause some subjects to explode. Eventually, Stark faces off against Killian and summons all of his suits to battle the Extremis soldiers, eventually winning. Next, we have Thor: The Dark World. In the second movie in this trilogy, Thor once again reunites with Jane Foster, an astrophysicist. Together, they work together to find the source of a series of portals that have been appearing at random on Earth, linking different worlds together. They soon discover that an ancient wielder of dark magic, Malekith, and his army of dark elves have returned to find an ancient weapon. This weapon is known as the Aether, one of the Infinity Stones. Thor joined forces with Loki, his brother, and together they fight and defeat Malekith.
Next, we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This movie starts off with Captain Steve Rogers trying to adapt to modern times, and then in a tragic accident, Nick Fury was assassinated, leaving Captain America and the Black Widow to find out who was the killer. They find out that it was Captain America's long-lost friend from 1940, Bucky Barnes, only to find out that Bucky doesn't remember anything from back then, and all he wants to do is kill. They also find out that he is associated with Hydra. Then, towards the end, they have an epic showdown with Hydra versus Captain America with Bucky, and Captain America does convince Bucky that he knows him. He does save Captain America.
The next movie we have is Guardians of the Galaxy. In this Marvel masterpiece, a group of outcasts band together to save the universe. Peter Quill is Star-Lord, a human that is brought up in space all of his life and turned into a thief. He is joined by Gamora, the adopted daughter of Thanos, who you will want to remember as he is the master villain in this entire franchise. He's also joined by Rocket the Raccoon, Groot his muscle, and Drax the Destroyer. Together they fight to keep the Orb, one of the Infinity Stones, out of Ronin's hand. Ronin, a Kree warrior, seeks to use it and to destroy the universe. The Guardians band together and destroy him.
Next, we have Avengers: Age of Ultron. When Tony Stark and Bruce Banner experiment with artificial intelligence, they accidentally create Ultron, whose only aspiration is to wipe out humanity. Long story short, the Avengers reassemble to defeat Ultron, they win, and in the process we are introduced to two new important characters. The first is Wanda Maximoff. Her superpowers are basically just like warping reality. And the second character is Vision, the embodiment of Jarvis, which is basically Iron Man's own personal artificial intelligence, who has an Infinity Stone stuck right in his head. More specifically, the Mind Stone, which makes him a very wise being and also pretty freaking powerful.
Next we have Ant-Man. Scott Lang is a master thief who stumbles across a man named Hank Pym, who developed a suit that can shrink its user. Scott learns that he must become the Ant-Man, a super small but super strong fighter. Using this technology, Lang must defeat a rival Hank Pym, who has developed a similar technology for evil. This movie also features a scene where Scott encounters Falcon at the Avengers facility, which holds significance for a later movie as they recruit him for battle.
Kicking off Phase 3, we have Captain America: Civil War. This movie addresses the vast amount of human casualties that happen in all of these stories. The world is starting to actually have a problem with how many humans are dying because of the Avengers' problems. So the government proposes something called the Sokovia Accords, which will basically mean that the Avengers act only with the approval of the government, dividing the Avengers into two teams. Long story short, the two teams fight. They don't really ever get to the bottom of it, and Captain America's team is all imprisoned, and he breaks them out at the end of the movie. Something very important, though, is that this movie introduces us to two very important characters. The first is the Black Panther. A man named T'Challa from the country Wakanda loses his father in an explosion which was allegedly caused by Bucky Barnes, which, as you can imagine, makes him very happy with Bucky Barnes. He dresses up like a Black Panther because of his culture that we'll get into later. And the second character that this movie introduces is Spider-Man. A 14-year-old boy named Peter Parker got bit by a radioactive spider that gives him spider-like abilities, like being able to shoot webs from his hands, climb walls, and he's pretty dang strong.
Next we have Doctor Strange. At the beginning of this movie, Stephen Strange, one of the world's best neurosurgeons, gets in the car accident that ruins his career. Following this event, he goes on a journey to find someone who can help him restore the full use of his hands and allow him to return to his work. However, he stumbles across the Ancient One, a wielder of magic. There, Doctor Strange learns how to wield this magic. A threat known as Dormammu begins to rise, who seeks to take over the entire universe. Doctor Strange, with the use of an amulet containing an Infinity Stone, uses this newfound magic to defend the Earth and return the universe to balance.
Bringing us to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The movie starts off with Rocket stealing important artifacts from an alien race, which puts the whole team on the run from them. However, while they're out and about, they encounter the supposed biological father of Star-Lord. He apparently is the biological father of Star-Lord, and he only wanted to get to Peter because he wanted his help to take over the whole universe. Star-Lord didn't really want to be a part of that. So they fight, father and son, in this very epic battle, and that alien race that I mentioned, they find them, and they all have this super epic fight. The Guardians win, happy ending. Next, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. Starting right after the events of Captain America's Civil War, Peter Parker just wants to be an Avenger. We see Peter Parker struggling with both of his identities, being Spider-Man and Peter Parker. In the middle of all this, he discovers a team of villains making illegal weapons. So he tries to defeat them himself, trying to prove himself to Tony Stark and maybe become an Avenger. He fails, pretty miserably. Iron Man breaks any connection with Peter, leaving him by himself to live a normal, non-Spider-Man life. He even tries a little fun by going to his school's homecoming, but the normal life just doesn't work out for him. It turns out his date is the daughter of the main villain in this movie, which is the Vulture. So he tries to take him on again, and this time he wins. So Iron Man says, "You can be on the team if you want," but Peter does the wise thing and turns him down, and he says, "I just want to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man."
The next movie we have is Thor Ragnarok. In this third installment of the trilogy, Thor learns of a new threat, an ancient warrior named Hela. This mysterious villain turns out to be his long-lost sister, who now seeks to reclaim the throne of Asgard. In the beginning of the movie, Hela destroys Thor's hammer and Thor is transported to another world. On this other world, Thor encounters the Hulk in a gladiator-style duel. As the movie goes on, he meets a fellow Asgardian who used to be a Valkyrie, a female warrior, and with her help and the Hulk's, they return to Asgard and battle Hela, who seeks to unleash Ragnarok, which is the end of the world. With all of the heroes they've gathered, they manage to defeat her, but end up seeing Asgard destroyed in the process, leaving them homeless.
Bringing us to the last movie on this list, which is the Black Panther. This solo film starts off with T'Challa being crowned King of Wakanda. The country of Wakanda is apparently a lot more rich and futuristic than the rest of the world thinks it is because of its ample supply of vibranium. After a while of T'Challa being king, he is confronted with someone claiming to be his cousin. It turns out that this person is, and his name is Eric Killmonger. And he wants the throne of Wakanda because he thinks that Wakanda could be helping the rest of the world with their technology, but Wakanda does not want to be mixed up in all of that. So he challenges T'Challa, T'Challa accepts, and then he supposedly kills T'Challa in a fight. So Killmonger is crowned king, and everyone thinks that T'Challa is dead. However, he's not, and he fights Killmonger again, and he wins. Happy ending. Alright, so that's all the movies in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe leading up to Infinity War. If you're watching this and you haven't seen any of them, go watch them. They're really great movies.
Alright, YouTube Nation, that is all for today. Make sure to stay tuned for our upcoming movie review on Infinity War. We can't wait to see it and do a review on it. I'm sure you guys will love it. Also, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel, The Limited Edition Dudes. Limited Edition Dudes, out.